STB's role in all of this was really, first and foremost, to think about and advocate from the perspective of the traveller. There are many agencies involved in these sorts of schemes, right? You have the transport agencies, you have immigration agencies, healthcare agencies, and each of them have their own requirements, their own forms to fill, and nobody is responsible for then thinking from the perspective of the person who has to go through all this, which is the traveller. So STB stood up and said, let's think through all this from the perspective of the traveller. So that was first and foremost our role in trying to make sense of all of these requirements, all of which were necessary and important, but from the perspective of the traveller. And then from there on, we find ways to simplify. Do we really need this step? Do we really need this requirement? Can we merge some of these requirements? Another role we played was then making the information more readily available. So we also took on the role of making sure that the information on our websites, especially the Visit Singapore website, became the single source of truth for travellers coming to Singapore. But this meant that we had to be always constantly plugged in to the thinking of the other agencies. So whenever policies changed, how many days of SHN, what sort of vaccinations are required, are boosters required, and so on, what ages are required, that all this information will be piped into our systems so that we could then push it out to people considering travelling to Singapore. The other aspect of our role is driving demand. Because all the other agencies can do all these processes and policies to simplify travel to Singapore, but if there's no demand coming to Singapore, then that doesn't help us very much. So then we had to also work hard to ensure that there was demand for these vaccinated travel lanes into Singapore. So even as we were starting out all these experiments with vaccinated travel lanes with some countries, we were also then working with our regional offices in countries like Germany to drive demand. For example, by inviting journalists and influencers to come to Singapore to take advantage of these travel lanes, so to demystify the experience for them so that they could write about it, they could blog about it, and tell others in their home countries actually coming to Singapore is actually quite easy.